I mean, I do drop it a lot. Yeah. Yep. Interesting. I don't know when it happens. I just noticed it. I drop it all the time. I've had this one for a while. Actually, maybe the same track saver I've had since I got the phone. Wait, 15 now. No, mine's 13. It's a video.
All right, good. How you doing? Good. I'm on.
Everybody turn their microphones on. We'll call this meeting to order. First order of business is to open the proposed use of mutual aid program funds and local government assistance for the FY 2024-2025 hearing. We got to do this first before the council starts.
Okay.
Okay, no one. We'll close the public hearing. Now, call this meeting to order. Would stand for a moment of silence and the pledge by Mr. Hampton.
Pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Be seated. Madam Clerk, could we get a roll call, please?
Here.
Here.
Butcher Conway.
Here.
Mrs. Hambrick.
Present.
Mr. Hampton. Mr. Showalter. Mr. Stone.
Here.
Mrs. Tackett.
Here.
All right. Next on the agenda is approval of minutes from our last meeting. Do I hear a motion?
Motion.
Motion by
Mayor,
Mr. Allen.
and I'm just trying to figure out what, motion.
Not late for dinner. That'd be great. Second by Ms. Hambrick. Is there any discussion? All those in favor of the motion, please signify by saying aye.
Aye.
All those opposed? You should, in your packet, you should have got a copy of the check register. Everyone raise their hand, see if you got it. Thank you. This time, public comments. Again, we'll limit the comments to 4 minutes, and Ms. Hoffman will be timing it. First one up is Mr. Dan Holman.
Hi there, I'm Dan Holman. I guess I'll just comment real quickly about 3 things. The On Patrol Live is something that kind of came up last time, and just one comment about it, it just kind of came up without previous notice. So it's kind of good. It's good. Thank you all for delaying it to this time. And I think it seems like there's been public discussion in town. So just with issues in general, I think the public appreciates having a little advance notice about things and having a chance to discuss it. So that I'll leave it to you all to have that discussion tonight. Related to the business park, I'll just mention real quick, I guess, the Wiles Farm, the use of the land. And so I guess on this Wednesday, just everyone should know, and probably do already, that there's the planning and zoning group is having a workshop at the Ag Extension office at 6 p.m. So that's an important meeting to go to, related to our the town's 5-year comprehensive plan. So that's just a very important meeting for the town to go to for lots of reasons. And then people are, of course, interested in the land use over by the 2 high schools on the west side of town. And so there's just lots of comments about that. And I guess one comment is, speaking about having a business park over there, like since that whole thing came up, I think we just need to realize it's not like incredibly urgent that we have a business park right away. So there's time to think about it and really get things positioned correctly. That kind of came up because that land happened to be for sale. And it just was like a low-hanging fruit, an easy place to put it. But it really seems like it probably wasn't the best location. Since all that came up, Lexington is opening a business park 3.7 miles south of our county line. If you go down South 25, like that was just announced, there's a 200-acre business park, and then they're widening the road to Lexington. So there will be jobs for Georgetown just down 25 at this new business park that after this whole idea came up, that has been released. There's another business park that's in early development over on Newtown Pike. It's like 200 or 300 acres, Providence Business Center, that's in early development. And then just one other quick thought about that. So yeah, so these business parks that were built, that are getting built, and it's a regional plan. It's not. This wasn't Georgetown that decided all this. This was kind of Commerce, Lexington, and regional studies about where to put things. We really need to ask ourselves, where are the people coming? Are these jobs for our Georgetowners and their children, or are these jobs? In a lot of ways, we're creating jobs here, and then people are leaving Eastern Kentucky, where they have affordable housing, but they don't have jobs, and they're coming here for jobs. So we're building them jobs. They come here, leaving that affordable housing empty, and then kind of putting pressure on our housing and economy. So what really needs, if we look at a regional approach and a statewide approach, Eastern Kentucky needs some development right now, probably. So we should. That's just something to think about. And then real quick about stormwater. So there is a stormwater. So on the budget that's being the first reading again tonight, there's a line item about developing a stormwater utility fee, which that's kind of
3 minutes.
1 minute left?
Yeah.
Okay, thank you. So on the budget, there's a stormwater utility fee item, which relevant to that line item is this study that was a precursor to deciding about that, called a stormwater utility fee feasibility study that was started under Prather, and then it just never got released yet. So it's just something with some important information that hasn't been scheduled for release yet. I think the mayor he's waiting on strategic timing. He wants to wait till it's strategically the best time, but the best time is now, because it's just time to get this information out to assess, which gives valuable information about assessing our stormwater system. So before we budget money to skip over this study and move to the next step, we really just kind of need to present that out there, at least briefly. Okay, thank you very much.
Thank
Thank
you.
you.
Up next is Aaron, and I don't want to butcher your last name. Shu. Okay.
It's just spelled backward. So I'm Erin Shu, 108 Arrowhead Court, pleasantly persistent and back again. As per usual, I'm here to register my concerns about the proposed regional development on the Northwest Bypass known as the Wiles property. These concerns fall into 3 general categories: location, communication, and community input. In previous comments, I've repeatedly addressed location issues. I could easily speak on that for an hour, but I only have 4 minutes, and you're probably tired of hearing me talk about it. So I'll shift to something else. In the 2024 Comprehensive Plan website, it states that this property is already within the urban service boundary. I've made it a habit of coming to almost every meeting since March, and I missed that vote, so I would love to know when that happened. It is worth noting that bringing the 500-plus acre development into the urban service boundary entails as yet undefined or perhaps undisclosed initial and ongoing costs. It's also worth noting that an additional $1.2 million in the currently proposed city budget for the continued subsidization of the Lanes Run development, which has been in place for 20 years and is far from full. So what are we signing up for here, and do we even know in terms of initial and ongoing cost? The regional nature of this project also remains largely undefined to the community. How is the cost and revenue sharing going to work? Who truly has control of the future direction of the development? I will note that previous rounds of asking this question have remained unanswered. I do know that the PDI equity and investment breakdown that was communicated on January 17th, the city had a 4% investment. Meanwhile, Madison County has 25%. So you have 4% of ownership and the responsibility for ongoing costs as part of the urban service boundary. That seems like a really bad deal. The community has been very clear. There's no demand for this from the greater community. The newspaper polls showed that 80% of the respondents were opposed. There are 600 members now on the Facebook page who are actively opposed. We're approaching 400 signatories on a petition that was just launched last week. The people pushing for this seem to have forgotten who's paying for it and who's going to have to live with this development in the future. It's the community, it's the taxpayers, the same people who are being very clear in our opposition. We're here, we're speaking, we're writing letters, we're posting signs. We'll be coming to the public forum on Wednesday. The question is whether anyone's actually listening to what we have to say or whether this is a foregone conclusion. If this is such a good idea, it would not need a PR firm at $4,000 per month to pitch it to the community. If it's such a good idea, share the details of the regional development and agreement. Share the forecast costs and revenue. Let us understand exactly what we're signing up for and then put it up for a community vote. Thank you for your time.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Up next, Mr. Steve Glass.
Good afternoon, ladies and gentlemen of the council. I'm Steve Glass, 143 Southampton Street, Georgetown, Kentucky. At the last council meeting, there was some disagreement, strong disagreement, and dissatisfaction on the part of some of the council as to where the money was being allocated in the budget. And there's some, seemed like some hard feelings over the fact that the city hall is being renovated and you're not building a new fire station. So I know what the problem is, and it's really not your all's fault, but Franklin County, the Franklin County Fiscal Court collects no occupational tax from businesses and employees in Frankfort. And the Madison County Fiscal Court collects no occupational tax or payroll tax inside Berea or Richmond. And Winchester or Clark County Fiscal Court collects no they collect no payroll tax inside the city of Winchester. And it's because those counties have a population that exceeds 30,000 people. So it kind of makes you wonder why Georgetown or why Scott County Fiscal Court still collects tax. And the reason is it's a state statute that when a county reaches a population of 30,000 people, then the fiscal court loses its statutory authority to collect taxes inside the city. But being the victim of politics in 2002, that law was changed, strangely enough. And now you see the situation where the city's paying all the tax or paying for all the services and infrastructure to produce the tax, but they're only getting half of it. So, like I said, it's not your all's fault. It's a matter of politics that this has changed. And I'm not sure that we could ever change that statute, because I don't think that our senators and our state senators, the state representative, have the intestinal fortitude to take that on. But it can be adjusted by interlocal agreement. The fiscal court's paying for half of EMS, which is an interlocal agreement, but the city's built fire stations, or not fire stations, but they've built EMS stations.
Mr. Glass has 3 minutes. In
Sadieville and Stamping Ground. So I think you can see the problem. So when you argue among each other about where the money's going to be allocated, this is the reason. Thank you.
Thanks, sir.
Thank you.
Okay, up next, event applications, the Color of Cancer 5K. Hello.
I'm Lisa Stump. I'm here representing Georgetown Community Hospital, and I'm asking for approval for our 7th annual Colors of Cancer 5K, which is slated for September 28th. Georgetown College has already approved this date. The 5K is a fundraising event for our cancer patients that need assistance while they're on treatment, and this is our biggest fundraiser that we have. So we will ensure everything is cleaned up afterwards, as we always do, and we'll also make sure that all of the residents are aware that are on the route before we do the 5K. So, thank you.
Do you hear a motion?
I'll make a motion. I'll second.
Ms. Wilkins Brent makes the motion. Ms. Conway seconds it. Is there any further discussion?
I am on the hospital board, so I will be abstaining my vote.
All right. Thank you, sir. Hearing no further discussion, all those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
All opposed? Motion passes.
Thank you.
Thank you. Up next is council committee reports, and I believe only one is police department. Ms. Hamburg?
Thank you. We met on June 3rd. The meeting was called to order at 9:03. Present at the meeting, thank you, was Mayor Jenkins, CAO Golden, City Attorney Buttram, myself, and Council Member Stone, Chief Allgood, Assistant Chief Nash, and Captain Lodel. I made a motion to accept the minutes, seconded by the mayor. Motion passed. We discussed staffing first. The department is currently at 66 officers of 71. There's currently one non-certified candidate in the background and one certified starting the hiring process. We had a recruit that resigned due to an injury. So recruiting is ongoing and going well. We discussed that the department would start up recruiting in earnest again July 1st, so they'll be able to give details on the new budgeting and the new salary structure to potential recruits. There was discussion of the new pay scale and the salaries within the department. It was also mentioned that the police department and the fire department would have the sergeants and lieutenants on the same pay grade as members of the, so they would be equal and not off balance in the pay scales. The next item discussed were the body-worn cameras. The department was still on track to have them go live mid-July. We have hired an administrator to oversee the cameras. His name is Alan James, and he will report to the CIS lieutenant. Open records requests will go through CIS lieutenant, OFC Don Mather, and Alan James. And Alan James and other members of the department will be going to the Lexington Police Department for training on their body camera system. They will also train with University of Kentucky Department and the Scott County Sheriff's Office, since they already have body-worn cameras. The retired SRO program was discussed, the officers that are in schools. There's one remaining open position for that. There's some interest within the department. The last position will be posted at Western Elementary. The police department's traffic unit is ongoing. I hope none of you have been caught in violation, but we're excited about the fact of having safer streets. And Sergeant Perkins and 3 officers are in the process of studying policy and potential problem areas. We get a lot of input from people in the community about where violations are taking place, and we encourage that. We want to know. In addition to enforcement of the laws, the other part of the traffic unit will be education. They hope to go into the schools, especially the high school, and talk about safety. And they will do their best to educate the public as well. The next item was Main Street parking issues. CAO Golden and City Attorney are reviewing the policy that Lexington has. They're also looking at ways that the city can respond to continual parking issues downtown. During general discussion, I brought up the television show Live PD for discussion, and I have received a lot of concerns about that. We'll have discussion about that since it's on the agenda today, and so I look forward to that discussion. I have major concerns about it. Councilmember Stone discussed the response from Facebook about the potential of the Georgetown Police Department being on the show, and Mayor Jenkins was also concerned about the unknowns if we have something like that. The meeting was then adjourned.
And I do have two other things to report on that police department report. One is I'd like to congratulate Officer Caleb Hartley for being recognized as the representative from Georgetown Police Department getting.
Could you try again?
My Siri, I'm sorry.
That's okay.
again.
The drunk driving award for this year for the Georgetown Police Department from the Mothers Against Drunk Driving. And then the last thing is Officer Phil Hawley, who received several awards from the Kentucky Law Enforcement Council in the Career Development Program. It is a great program. I had several awards from them myself. So for him to get these four, especially law enforcement supervisor, law enforcement tactical officer, intermediate law enforcement officer, and advanced law enforcement officer. So congratulations to both of them. So.
Question about the report.
Go ahead.
It says that there are 66 or 71 officers field. So is that 71 total head count, or is that actually officers? There's a difference between like the chief and all that. When I hear officers, I'm not thinking of the captain and all that. Maybe it's all together, but.
It's all together.
Okay.
That's 71 slots is the number of
The
open
authorized
slots
head
that are
count.
authorized,
Okay.
yes.
So-
And that's from the chief all the way down.
Okay,
So,
thank you.
okay. Anybody else? Okay, up next, GMWSS, Chase.
Thank you, Councilmember Stone. We've got a number of things on the agenda tonight, so I will jump right in. And I'll start out with an item for Judy Construction on our wastewater treatment plant 1 upgrade and expansion. This is item A under Georgetown Municipal, and this is for change order number 7 in the amount of $80,803.67. This is a cumulative list of smaller change orders throughout the project, both additive and deductive, that we've been tracking. And we have 2 deductions that started early on in the project, totaling $254,056. And then since then, we have 13 additions totaling $334,559.67. So we've been tracking off those deductions, that initial deduction of $254,000 and change, and now that we've accumulated enough that we, on items 3 through 15 on page 2 of this purchase order and change order, that we want to have this reviewed by council and add this to the project pending your approval. So change order number 7, it's been reviewed by the contractor, the engineer, our staff, and the board, approved by our board, and we're recommending this change order on the project in the amount of $80,803.67. The items that it includes, again, page 2, items 1 through 15 on that change order.
Do I hear a motion?
Motion.
Motion made by Ms. Tackett. Do I hear a second?
I'll second it.
Second by Ms. Conway. Is there any discussion?
Yeah, just, can you go through some of those 15 items? I know,
Sure thing.
thank you.
The largest deduction, that was for $226,528. That was after we were in construction. We worked with the engineer and the contractor and kind of did some value engineering from a contractor's constructability standpoint. They proposed a different, much cheaper way to do the sealing of this this building, and the sewer gas within this building that can just eat through almost anything, and so there has to be special considerations there. And they suggested an alternative, much cheaper. So that's where that biggest part of our credit comes from. I'll jump down to the largest part of the addition is we want to upsize our tank blowers that's providing oxygen within our primary treatment structure. We just felt like for ultimate expansion of that, we wanted to go ahead at this point while it's cheaper to do it now versus doing it later to go ahead and expand those blowers further than beyond what we had designed for. Felt like it was better to do it now. And those are your two biggest ticket items. I'm happy to run through each one of them.
Just item 15, that masonry cost increase. I'm curious about that one.
That one is something that, but for the shutdown and of the project due to the structural redesign, there were buildings that we feel like probably the masonry piece would have been done at this point, and now that the masons are still not able to work. They've done the parts that they can, but the parts they're still waiting on, they're saying materials have increased at this point in the project. I asked, because in dealing with the change order with the structural redesign, that was supposed to be inclusive of all escalations. This is one that we just didn't see till after, and I've asked the contractor multiple times at this point, are we going to see any more? And we feel like those will be minimal at this point in the game.
Thank you.
Any other discussion? All those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
All opposed? Motion passes. Up next, Boyd Cat.
Next, we have a purchase Boyd Cat. This is for a new air compressor, a tow-behind air compressor, the amount of $28,400. This piece of equipment is a replacement for our current air compressor that is 27 years old. It no longer operational. It stopped working. We can't get it fixed. This is not a specific line item within our budget to replace this piece of equipment, but across all departments we've done very well on expenses this fiscal year, including the distribution department. So we're using unspent operational funds to get this piece of equipment replaced. We've received 3 formal quotes, with Boyd providing the low quote. We use the compressor on almost a daily basis. Anytime there's a new tap, a water line tap that goes under a sidewalk, under a road, we use the compressor to punch that under versus digging across and then doing pavement replacement. Questions? I'd already gotten one. So
Yeah, the freight on that's $900, and Boyd Cat's on Georgetown Road. It's about 7 miles from here. Can we just go get that and avoid the freight?
if we can get it within a 1 or 2 day drive, it depends on where it's coming from to get to their local supplier.
Right.
If we can get to it within 1 or 2 days drive, we will go get it and avoid that cost. If it's beyond there, then we'll have to kind of weigh that based
So
on
it's not
mileage.
coming to Georgetown Road, Boyd Cat on Georgetown Road?
It is. It's just depending on where it's coming from. I don't think that's the manufacturing facility.
Right, okay. When will you know the answer to that?
Before we send the check.
I would really like to know the answer to that before I vote on it.
Okay.
I know it's not much, but $900.
It's $900.
I think
I understand.
it is, isn't it?
What if I get an answer for that, and then we'll bring that back the next agenda, if that's okay?
If it doesn't impede your ability to, as long as the schedule.
We've been renting one day as we need it, and we can do that 2 more weeks. That's not a problem.
How much is that rent?
I don't know off the top of my head.
$450, would not be.
Chase, this is a brand new one.
Yes, sir.
Have you looked at remanufactured?
I'm sorry?
Remanufactured?
We've not. We just called and requested quotes for a new unit that was replacement in kind. But again, something else we can look into.
I guess in the meantime, while you're checking on the freight, we could maybe check and see if the remanufactured would be any cheaper. They're just as good, and it would probably about 2/3 of the cost.
Happy to look.
And they are warranted. So.
Okay. Do
So-
we have a motion on this one? No. Okay. All right, so we're just going to remove that one until next time.
Delay that one.
All right, up next is 3 enterprise units.
So 3 fleet purchases. Purchase orders are similar to the one that we did back in April. As you heard from me, and I think your city departments as well, vehicle purchasing it's remained challenging even post-pandemic. We place orders, but they're not always filled. We go through our approvals process, and a vehicle's gone before we can have that purchase order approved. So currently, if we look back to FY20, we are 7 vehicle replacements behind, just based on getting trucks, and most of these are just work trucks. We would like to, as we did in April, have a purchase order ready to go, so our fleet manager enterprise, if they find a vehicle on a lot, or if there is an unclaimed vehicle off an order for another city, or if a manufacturer opens up an order bank, we are ready to go, and I'm not taking a purchase order to the board and then to council, so we lose those vehicles. So if council is okay with this, as we've done one time previously, I'd like to have 3 not to exceed change order or purchase orders for trucks. It'd be 2 just 4x4 duty level trucks and 1 4x4 utility bed truck, and that way we are ready to go if one comes available. These are all replacements. None of this is fleet addition. These are replacing 10, 12-year-old trucks. I think the 2 duty trucks, just standard, those are 2012, 2013 models, and then the utility bed, that one's one we've had inspected, and to replace and do maintenance work for the transmission. The work will cost more than the vehicle's value, so it's been recommended that we replace that one. So we would do 2 $45,000 purchase orders specific only for this purchase, and then 1 $80,000 for the utility truck. And as we did this previously, we did a $45,000 purchase order, and we found the truck and secured it for $39,000 and change back in April. So this worked once. We'd like to pursue this again, just to try to get a little bit caught up on our fleet.
Motion.
Motion made by,
That's from item C, D, and E, correct?
correct.
I'll second.
Okay. Motion made by Mr. Allen, seconded by Mr. Showalter. Any discussion?
Yes, will you be surplusing the old vehicles?
Yes,
Okay. So that should offset a little cost.
yes.
Anything else? All those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
All opposed? Okay, that takes care of C, D, and E. Number F is wastewater treatment plant number 2, storage improvement contract amendment number 1.
Yep, we have on our Plant 2, our sludge storage improvement project, we have a contract amendment for the engineer in the amount of $53,750. This amendment is for additional construction administration and resident inspection on the project. As I outlined in your council memo, that due to fabrication and material issues, this contract has been delayed and extended through really nobody's fault that we're attributing that to, but we have to keep the engineer working because we still have progress meetings. The inspector still has to be on site. So we feel like for the extension that this was a fair price based on the personnel costs that they list in their original price proposal. So we do think that this will not be an issue based on when this project started to now, some tax laws that have changed, that materials and equipment are tax exempt. So we are going to be seeing savings on this project that we do feel that will be in excess of the contract amendment change order. And this has been approved by our board as well as TMMK.
Do I hear a motion?
Motion. I'll second.
Motion by Ms. Brent,
I'll
seconded
second.
by Mr. Allen. Any discussion?
Are these, I know the tax changes that were done statewide, are they retroactive?
I believe they are, because we are working on them through all of our projects that started before January 1st of this year. So we are South Sewer Extension, wastewater treatment plant 1. We are pursuing those. It's not an easy process because
Right.
that money's already been allocated, and we've paid vendors when they've delivered product for the project, but there is a process and we're trying to work through it.
Okay, thank you.
Any other discussion? All those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
All opposed? Motion passes. Item G, 2025 operating and capital budget.
So excited as always to present our FY25 operating capital budget. We have a PowerPoint on the screen, and with me tonight is our finance director, Jeff Nutter. It will be helping me with the presentation. So we go to our first slide. Thank you. Our agenda presentation will include a look at where our rates are today as related to the rate ordinance. I definitely think it's important to look through that and have a little bit of review. We'll look at our development timeline. For context, we'll review our assumptions, our methodology, and how we develop our budget, touch on a few of the highlights, and then Jeff and I are here to answer any of your questions that you may have. So we'll go to our next slide, please. So water and sanitary sewer rates that comprise most of our revenue, as you'll see later. Our rates were updated on March 1st of this year, and they will update it again within the FY25 budget on March 1st of 2025. And that is per the approved rate ordinance. That's already in place. And keep in mind that these rates, they've been effective since March, for our current rates are effective March 1st of this year. And that is the second of 3 17% increases. And then March 1st of 2025, that will be the third of the 3 17% increases. March 1st of 2026, that's when rate increases of 6%, 3 years will start. So this rate structure is already approved as of last year, and this budget suggests no change to that rate structure. This budget is developed according to that rate structure. So any questions there?
Yes, I have a question. So this rate structure was based on no growth, correct?
Correct.
Correct. So based on the growth that we have had, how has that impacted this plan?
I think that you'll see that later on when Jeff goes into projected revenues. And then I would also add that, we'll touch on this later, is that as the Board of Commissioners committed to our customers, to the City Council, that we would go back and reevaluate our rate structure over the next few years, every year, which we have planned to do. So I think we will touch on that in just a little bit.
You will talk about the timing of that reevaluation as well?
My guess is it'll be, we've not really discussed of when, but my guess it'll be probably the second half toward the end of this coming fiscal year's budget, just so we have the most amount of time. We do need to do it within this fiscal year's budget, but we want to have the most amount of time and data to give to the new gen strategies and solutions.
If you're determining a budget, I would think you would have that done in conjunction with the budget. So you would
Well, I mean, I think that the in-depth analysis that we had as of last year, kind of starting in the fall of 2022 going into March of 2023, I feel like that is accurate through this budget cycle that's projected, and then that's why we will have, kind of looking into the next budget cycle, we will have the analysis at that time.
Okay. Okay.
All right. And the next slide, please. So always, again, for context, like to just look at a brief budget development timeline. We start in January. February, we have all of our departmental requests in. April, we're compiling everything, kind of similar time schedule with the city. May 7th, April 30th, we presented our draft budget to our budget committee of the board, and then we presented this budget that you're seeing in your packet and this presentation tonight to the Board of Commissioners on May 7th, where it was approved. So that's kind of where we've been working on this. Next slide, please.
Chase, could we stay there just for a second?
Go ahead.
In terms of that schedule, could we go back, please?
Back one slide, please.
Yeah, in terms of that schedule, and that's what I was talking about, because that's planning for July 1st, correct? Budget to start.
Correct.
So somewhere in that timeline, I would think you would be assessing the growth and determining the impact, so we could see what the impact is going to be on the budget. Not setting the budget and then going back and doing some analysis, but setting it somewhere in this timeline. And you may be doing that, I just can't see that.
feel like that was done with the 2022-2023 rate analysis that was presented through November of '22 through March of '23.
I'm still struggling with this, not, and I apologize, I don't want to take up a lot of time, guys, but if it's based on no growth, we're having growth, so when's the analysis for that, and how does that impact the budget?
Well, that has impacted our budget. It's impacted the budget
Come on.
positively.
Yeah, come on, yeah.
It's impacted the budget positively. Revenues are up
Yeah.
against what the rate model anticipated, as you could expect.
Right.
I think to drill down a little bit on what Chase is talking about, I think for me, the ideal timeline would be to bring it in time before that March 1st, that next rate anniversary, so that if, whatever the redo of the rate model suggests, we could bring it to you in time for whatever we decided to do.
No, it's clear. If you're doing it around March timing, that's clear. I see how it fits into it. Maybe I didn't hear that earlier, I apologize, but if it's doing March timing, then it's in preparation for that July.
I think that would be our goal, is to try to get it in front of you in time to make, if we wanted to make a decision on a different path to go, we could do that for our March 1st rate anniversary.
Okay,
If that makes sense.
yes.
Other questions? Next slide, please. So this next part is really projections, assumptions, and methodology that goes into our process. And first, where are we on our water and sanitary sewer connections for the new fiscal year? I've shown for FY24, we were at 100 connections respectively, water and wastewater. And we're holding that steady at for the new fiscal year. That kind of matches up well with what we think that we can handle as with remaining capacity, knowing that the plant will come online end of third quarter, March 2025. So that matches up with end of the third quarter on our fiscal year. So that would give us 1 quarter where we're going to start to see some of these projects come online. The board asked us, they said, no, we're going to hold steady based on what was recommended in the rate analysis for 1 more fiscal year. If we collect more, that's fine, and that's based on the increased connection fees that we did with the approved rate ordinance. Questions on connections? Okay. So next is our look at wages, and we're recommending a cost of living and merit raise this year. Cost of living at 2%. Merit based on a maximum of 1.75%. So the maximum opportunity that all staff members have to increase their wages is up to 3.75% based on the highest marks on an annual evaluation. Our retirement contribution through CERS, mandated by the state, it does show a decrease in contribution of 15.55%. And then we had some pretty significant changes on our group insurance. As you can see on the slide and in your packet, our rates for FY25 for both of our plans, the PPO and the high deductible, we had significant increases the past 2 years on the high deductible, and then this year on both the high deductible and the PPO. In order to combat these increases on group insurance, we have included funding in this budget for membership at the Premise Health Clinic, and that is the same clinic utilized by the city for city employees as part of their health insurance, and at an assumed utilization rate that I have no problem believing that we will hit that utilization rate. We think that this makes a $47,000 expenditure on our budget. However, we think that this is a necessary step, that if we become a member and we divert all of those claims away from the insurance company, that is how we can go about minimizing future increases that we're seeing, because we just can't keep on the way that we're going with over 15% increases. It's just very, very difficult. So this is the best way we know to combat this. It seems like it's been successful with the city, very popular. I know you all are, the city employees are insured a different way, but we still feel like if we can get those claims, at least that minimal amount of claims, away from the insurance carrier, that we feel like that our cost there we will exceed that based on the expense of the next year's premium increase.
How many employees are there?
We're budgeted for 65, and I think we're at 62 right now.
Okay.
James, a follow-up question to that. I noticed on the line item, salaries and wages, you're adding an assistant supervisor position, but your wages are going down for fiscal '25. It's minimal, but they're not.
I think part of that, first of all, the adding assistant supervisors is not increasing our headcount within each department. We feel like a while back, predated my tenure at Georgetown Municipal, there were a lot of titles. It was simplified, and we feel like we've lost some bit of chain of command in there, especially when a supervisor's away from work, whether vacation, sick, and having somebody in those positions. So we've added those back, but we don't anticipate adding headcount to do that. That will just be existing employees or somebody from the outside if we're have an opening in a department and we interview somebody that we think would fill the position well. I think the other part of that is we've had a number of, over the last few years, retirees of longtime employees that had gone up the pay scale significantly, and with those retirements and replacing those, generally we're not fortunate enough to replace a Class 4 operator with 25 years experience with that same. We're replacing a trainee position with no experience that we're educating from day one. So I think that's where you're going to see the difference, and I'll look to Jeff I think that's, okay.
And a follow-up to the health insurance, the 16% increase, did you take that to market?
We did through our broker, but I mean, that's just we do our insurance through KLC, so it was whatever they provided us, which was not a lot of negotiation and option there.
Okay, thanks.
Any more questions on our kind of our projections, assumptions? Okay. Next slide, please, and this is where I'm going to turn it over to Jeff. He's going to talk about going to our revenue and expenses, and so I'll turn it over here for just a minute. Thank you.
Council. Mr. Allen, may I go back to the question you would ask earlier?
Certainly.
I think the next year we're going to know a lot. First off, we're going to know about how our rate model looks compared to where we thought it would be when we did it in FY23. The second thing, when we brought you the recent debt offering, we had told you at that point that we intend to go to market in the next 12 months for our permanent debt offering. I think we're going to know a lot there too in terms of how much we need to borrow. We told you guys back when we did the rate model in FY23 that was going to be $86 million. We don't know that that's going to be correct any longer. And I don't mean that it would be more than 86 million, but we think it might be something less than that. So I think over the next 12 months, we're going to have a lot of answers in terms of the rate model and in terms of what we go to market to borrow. We haven't done enough analysis yet to give you any specifics other than to say it's our hope it's going to be good news. So with that, I'll start in with revenue. As you can see, I'll try not to just read the slides here, but our Fund 1 revenue is increasing by almost $2.8 million or 17.34% from FY24. That's no coincidence. That 17% is the amount of the rate increase from the rate model. That 0.34% is some non-rate revenues that are adjusting as well. But this increase is primarily a result of the increase in the rate revenues. Mr. Allen, to your point, the rate model assumed no increase in our FY22 consumption, so we expect there'll be some conservatism in these rates. Fund 2 revenue, that's our revenue for the wastewater plant number 2 that TMMK reimburses us for. It's increasing by $39,735 or 1.62% from FY24. Questions at all on revenue? any of the increases. I think there's some, in your packet, there's some more detail on revenue by line item, so any questions at all on revenue? If not, I'll move on to expenditures. Okay. Next slide, the expenditures. Our Fund 1 expenditures are increasing by $1.8 million, just over $1.8 million, or 13.16% from FY24. As Chase has mentioned, some of the drivers to this first one, but wages and group insurance are up collectively $161,000. That's primarily, if not entirely, due to group insurance increases, where our premiums are going up double-digit increases year over year, and the addition of the Premise Health Clinic. Although I would add that the Premise Health Clinic is a minor impact on that group insurance number, it's primarily the increase in premiums. Our maintenance and repair costs are increasing by $16,000 every year with the imminent go live of the new Plant 1 technology. We've been putting a little bit extra into our Plant 1 maintenance and repairs because that's technology that's going to go away, so we don't want to capitalize those repairs and then have to write them off when the new technology comes into play in FY25. So we've been adding some dollars to our maintenance and repair budget for Fund 1 or for Plant 1. The big ticket item, the big increase this year is our depreciation expense. It increased to $1,476,000. That's a product of two items. That's a full year of depreciation on the South Sewer project that attained beneficial completion this year, so we have to start depreciating that, and that counts on Plant 1 attaining beneficial completion on March 31st of 25, so we would have to include 3 months of depreciation for Plant 1, and at a $60 million item, that's a significant amount. So that includes 3 months of Plant 1 depreciation and a full year of the South Sewer project. So that's the reason for the very large increase in depreciation expense. We've increased professional services accounting by almost $70,000. That includes $40,000 for the rate model refresh and $75,000 for an engineering report. That engineering report's needed to get permanent financing and to go to the bond market. The investment community expects us to have an engineering report that basically is a front-to-back detail of the project that we're completing and seeking funding for. Our hope is that those two won't cost that much, and that there will be some overlap between the rate model refresh and the engineering report that will be able to kind of defer some of the cost of both of those. Professional services sludge increased by $35,000. That's kind of based on our current usage, and that we know we'll probably get that contract will renew in November, and that will probably not renew without a price increase. We've increased professional services engineering by $35,000. $25,000 of that is for us to do some in-house sanitary sewer model runs, and then there's $10,000 for a consultant for the water supply RFP. That's a whole lot of numbers and explanations, so I'll pause for a moment and see if anyone has any questions on the increases to our Fund 1 expenditures.
Do we anticipate that our water purchases from Frankfurt are going to stay about steady or go down or increase?
We have budgeted exactly the same as we have last year.
Yeah.
And that is to say that includes a drought. So
Okay.
we've budgeted a worst-case scenario.
Okay.
That's what we had in last year. Thankfully, last year being this year, FY24, thankfully we haven't seen a drought this year, or not one that's severe enough to really impact our cost, but we've built that drought into next year's
Okay.
budget as well.
Thank you.
Any other questions on the Fund 1 expenditures? Okay, if not, I'll touch on Fund 2 expenditures. They're going up by $64,945, or 2.02% from FY24. This is a lot of small increases that add up to the $64,000, but most of those are similar to the Fund 1 increases. Group insurance for one, depreciation for another, and sludge hauling are all similar to Fund 1. We have 2 or 3 large chemical purchases we do here at Plant 2, and we've increased those just out of an abundance of caution to make sure that they will be well within our budgeted amounts. That's it for expenditures, unless anyone has any questions at all. Yes, ma'am.
Did we get any federal funds for all of the work and the hours that were spent changing over in people's houses for lead and copper remediation? Or is that all coming from our budget?
We have not, that's all coming from our budget, but to my knowledge, we haven't really started to do those kind of change outs yet, have we, Chase?
On specific to the lead and copper rule rule revision and lead and copper rule LCRI, sorry, I get the acronyms.
Yeah.
But so far, all we've done is we're working on our inventory, which is due in October.
Okay.
Thankfully, with the age of our system being outside of kind of really the downtown area, being post late 80s, lead fittings were already not allowed via plumbing code, so we've not found so far, we're close to our inventory being done, we've not found a lot of lead that may or may not have to be replaced. Whether it's on very little, if none, on the public side, on our side, very little on the customer side as well. So there are funds out there. Thankfully, we don't have a great need to pursue those funds that are specific for replacement. If we do have some that are identified, we've made the commitment, we'll chase every bit of funding we can.
Okay, thanks.
So.
Chase, along those same lines, are there
Yes, sir.
any federal, state fundings for PFAS elimination?
There are. Of course, I think if we are going to be successful, not Georgetown Municipal, but all drinking water utilities, there's going to have to be major effort from the federal level. We have already secured just over $2 million for PFAS removal treatment technology. We've also opted into the class action suits available that we feel like we will get some bit of the settlement. And we'll actually talk about that in a little bit on a later slide. But we will continue to chase all the funding. But I feel like we're on both lead and copper and on PFAS rule updates. I feel like we are in very, very good position that we can do most of that, if not all of that, without any impact to rates.
Okay, I'm going to move, there are a couple charts, if we can go to the next slide. These are some revenue and expenses by category. First, revenue, and as probably no surprise to anyone, the lion's share, the bulk of our revenue, the overwhelming majority is our rate revenue, our sewer and water revenue. That makes up 94% of our revenue. There are some smaller categories, connection fees, interest income, some miscellaneous revenues, penalties which have been stubbornly higher than we would like to see. Those are very minor categories. As you might expect, the overwhelming majority of our revenue is rate driven. Next is expenditures by category. And as you can see this year, depreciation has taken over as our number one expense. It normally is labor, but as you can see, depreciation on the left side of the pie chart in the bright green is almost $6.3 million budgeted for FY25. We do split wages and benefits. That's the orange and gray piece of pie on the right side of the chart. Were we to put those together, that would be more than the depreciation, but depreciation as a single category is our biggest category of expense this year. Questions on revenue expenses by category, anything? Okay, next we'll start a look into capital expenditures. Yes, can we go on to the next slide, please? Thank you. First, the rate model comparison to budget. This might help with some of the questions about where we are versus the rate model. This is kind of a high level, very condensed look at how our budget compares to our rate model. Our budgeted revenues, as you can see, if you look the variance column, the very far right column, if you can see the total operating revenues, we have a positive revenue variance to the rate model of $205,345. That's not rate revenues. We take those directly from the rate model and plug them right into our budget. Those are other categories like connection fees, miscellaneous, interest income. Those are other smaller, some of those smaller revenue categories that we do on a run rate basis rather than from the rate model. Our expenses, our budgeted expenses are almost $455,000 less than the rate model in a combined format. And our depreciation is about $572,000 less than the rate model. That's a function of just how quickly we're able to do projects versus how we budgeted them in the rate model versus how in real life we're able to do them, how quickly we're able to do them. That leaves us with a rate model, a positive variance of $1.2 million. Once we've paid for our planned capital projects and covered our debt service, we've got slightly more than $2.5 million left over. Now, what happens to the $2.5 million that's left over? Two things primarily. It'll go to cover additional capital projects. Chase is going to talk about one of those specifically here in a few minutes that weren't budgeted. And it will go to increasing our revenue for bond and interest as we bring the permanent financing on. That's going to be with some cost when we finance $60+ million for the wastewater treatment plant. The rate model was designed to help us be able to put some cash away to account for those expenses when they do get here, and they're going to be here a little bit sooner than we anticipated. So that's primarily where that excess cash will go. The next slide. Let me stop there and just see if there's any questions.
I got a question. I'm not sure when to ask it, so I'm going to ask it now, and you let me know when it's going to plug it in. We received some money from Congressman Barr's office, and how does that factor in? Does it factor into this coming budget period, or?
You're talking about some of the money from Congressman Barr toward the wastewater plant number 1 project. That'll factor in terms of how much we need to borrow.
Okay.
Because that will come right off the cost of the project, and that will help us, we hope, lower the amount of our borrowing. That $86 million I mentioned earlier, we hope that becomes something less.
Thank you.
Any other questions? Okay, next slide, please. I'm going to start out on capital expenses here and give you a few categories, and then I'll turn it back over to Chase. Our capital expenditures, our Fund 1 departmental capital projects are just a little over $1.7 million this year. That's a whole host of things that we budget for every year, like cured-in-place pipe that we replace, manhole work, meter replacements, a whole host of things like that. We pay for that out of cash flow. We don't incur debt for those. Those are $1.7 million this year. Our Fund 2 budget capital expenditures is $3,094,591. For Fund 2, that is for Plant 2 out by TMMK. TMMK reimburses us dollar for dollar for those capital expenditures. That amount has also been approved by them as well. And then we have vehicle replacements of $126,941 if we're able to get them, as Chase pointed out earlier. So with that, we're going to talk a little bit more about some additional capital funds that we have this year, thanks to Senator Thayer, and I'm going to turn it over to Chase to take you through those. Thank you.
Let me go to the next slide, please. So shifting our focus back to some of our bigger ticket items, Jeff's already touched on them a little bit, but we go to our capital improvement plan that is ongoing, and we will, within FY25, we will continue work on our treatment plant 1 upgrade and expansion, and that will be financed through our bond anticipation note number 3 until we secure that permanent financing, and we feel like we're projecting the spend rate through FY25 to be at $16.02 million. Then our other projects ongoing is the Deshay and Water Street interceptor replacement. That is our main trunk sewer, interceptor sewer that serves almost the entire southern half of the city. One of our oldest pipes and in need of replacement. That has already begun, and that is, we put our, instead of APRA, what you see on the screen, our ARPA funding, $3.45 million with $3.3 million of rate revenue to continue with that project. We are in design. That project design has actually already been sent to Division of Water for permitting, and we hope that the majority, if not all of that project, will be completed in FY25. Next, you have...
What is the deadline for the ARPA funding to use?
I don't know that I've heard of one yet, because I don't think we've even started spending down on that one yet.
Yeah.
Has to be expended by December 2026, right? Has to be obligated by December 2024,
Okay,
but spent by end of 2026, calendar year.
okay,
Won't be an issue.
all right.
Paynes Depot, water storage tank and associated distribution system improvements. That is where we have $5 million state budget allocation back from the 2022 budget, and that is going with $7.4 million of our rate revenue. And that is, as we've talked about, that we have far been undersized on stored drinking water volume, and this project will provide an additional tank for stored water, increase level of service for a number of customers, and just possibly another pressure zone on our drinking water system across the entire southern half of the city. Those three projects you've heard me talk about in almost every budget presentation. There should be nothing new there, no surprises. What I want to shift to is that we also had to plan for things that were going to come up that were not anticipated at the time. So we put a minimal amount of contingency into our rate structure for unbudgeted projects. And this last project that I'm going to discuss is our East Interceptor. This is a sanitary sewer replacement in the vicinity of the southern part of the bypass and 25 going east from 25. And this is a project, I'm not asking you to approve this tonight. We've included it within our budget because we feel like it's valuable enough to continue discussing within this budget if we want to pull the trigger on it at a later date. You would have that action through approval of design construction contracts. So if you want to say yes, that can be done there, or you can say no if that's not an appropriate expenditure. But we do feel like the benefit is there because we have aging infrastructure, 3 pump stations that we feel like are not only undersized for capacity, but also aging and in need of replacement. We can do that with possibly a gravity interceptor that would connect to our South Sewer Extension infrastructure. We would receive privilege fee money back. We also have a property owner developer that is very interested in that project because not only does it benefit us, it benefits them. So they're willing to go in and do cost sharing on that project, which we've done in the past. And it's a way that we don't have to upfront money that would come out of rate revenue. They can handle, the developer can, through this partnership that we're working on, not approved yet, but we can share that cost, and we don't put out money until we have rate revenue coming back in. And it also be beneficial for city's tax revenue. So not asking you to approve that. I just would like that funding for our portion of that being $918,000 projected, is that we would like to include that in our budget. Obviously, as I said, you all have ultimate authority over whether we move forward with that at a later date. Any questions on that project?
Yes.
Yeah, for clarification purposes on the East Interceptor, I think you just said the bypass in 25
Yes, sir.
going east.
Kind of around from, if we're looking at the bypasses o'clock, 6 o'clock to 3 o'clock.
So how, would that go all the way to Women's Mill?
No, no, it'd go up to the railroad there.
The what?
The railroad.
Okay.
So I've got a question, Chase.
Mhm.
Would the developer, have you guys had discussion with the developer about them doing the privilege fee?
We've looked at a privilege fee. We really think for the remaining property that's unsewered there, there's probably not enough to make it beneficial to do a privilege fee. What I was getting through kind of 2 different things there is really there's 2 benefited parties. Us, based on we're doing infrastructure renewal in an area where we've got some problems. They're getting service to an unsewered property, so we're sharing that cost proportionally. The privilege fee is for the infrastructure put in for the South Sewer Extension that we would recover that funding. So we're adding a potential property that would have to reimburse us a privilege fee for that downstream infrastructure.
And you say it's not beneficial for that developer to do the privilege fee, a privilege fee?
There'd just be,
There's not
we don't
enough
think there'd be
development
any
over
any additional land there that they'd be buying in and paying back.
Okay.
But we did look at that. It's just, I don't know that there'd be any benefit.
Yeah. Okay.
Chase, I gotta go back to the East Interceptor. I think it's
Yes, sir.
important for this body to know.
Absolutely.
Not just this body, but the next council. Sorry. Trying to remember back when we were having these discussions when Mayor Prather was mayor, obviously. Are there portions between the bypass and 25 you say going towards the railroad? Are there sections on the inner loop and also the outer loop that don't have sewer hookup
Correct.
at the present time?
Correct.
It's on the inner and outer, inside of the bypass
We
and
could
the outside of the bypass.
Probably figure out a way to serve what's on the inside of the bypass.
Okay.
And wouldn't be easy, but it would require upgrades to some existing infrastructure. I think both pump stations and force mains, maybe gravity lines as well. It is more beneficial and better from an operational standpoint to bring all of that flow, if those properties sought service, around to the South Sewer Extension infrastructure and connect them to the system there.
And I don't know if I'm supposed to, I'm going to ask.
Yeah.
When you think of the inner loop or the inside of the bypass, is that a mixture of residential growth and commercial? Or when I say growth, are we talking residential, commercial, or a combination of both, or do we even know at this point?
I think it's a combination of both, based on, as discussed, what we've seen in the comp plan. I think it is, I guess, I don't know the right word, I don't know approved yet, but it is slated for mixed use. And I think that's what they're looking at.
So there obviously is whether we want to admit it or not, there is a need for sewer.
There is. It is an unserviced area.
Okay, I've got to ask this question as a follow-up then. What other areas in Georgetown right now are we having similar issues in other areas within our city limits right now?
I think that there's other areas, but I think a lot of those will be fixed when we bring wastewater plant 1 on. I don't think it's specifically the collection and conveyance infrastructure. I think it is treatment infrastructure as well. And we have to look at those as far as are we wanting to kind of partner with a developer? We have to evaluate that on is there benefit to Georgetown Municipal? Because we do not pay for infrastructure for a developer that is solely to their benefit. We do not do that by policy, by written policy. This one, we can say that we've got, as I said, there's 3 pump stations. We've got to do something about those. They're just, one is maxed on capacity, and then there's others just based on age that we're going to have to do something one way or another. I would say this is the project that I have received probably the most attention from, as far as contact from a developer saying, we want service, we need it, we've got a plan for this property.
All right, then one last question. I know you briefly mentioned this when you started your presentation. Last year, we made an adjustment. When I say we voted and gave the approval from the council to move forward with an increase on the connection fees. Do we know how much additional revenue over the past 12 months that has brought in?
I don't know off the top of my head, but I could get you that very easily.
Okay. I would like to know that, just to see what that increase,
Yeah.
what that brought
I'm
in.
happy to get you that
for
information.
Okay. Thank you.
Chase, if this isn't a high-growth area, why are we focusing on it? I know you said that the infrastructure is at full capacity or at a high capacity. I'm just curious, why is it from an infrastructure perspective? Or if it's not a high growth area? I know that sounds like there's a development there that potentially could go there, but.
I think it's potentially one large project and then some subsequent smaller projects. And I think that that's probably why, I mean, it's not compared to the other projects on the list, it's not as high cost. So it's not as beneficial to a large service area, but kind of within our service area where we cannot provide sewer service and they want to move on a project, this is one that's kind of, I would say, a hot button issue.
Okay.
And it has that rare benefit that if we're doing it at the same time, we can upgrade some things that we need to upgrade as well, versus it's just an extension to an unserviced area. That's when it would just be at the developer's cost. They'd do the project and we'd accept it into the system.
Okay.
But we are not voting on that now.
No, you're not. I mean, I'm asking for it to be included in the budget, but I would have to bring you back an engineering contract for design. I would have to bring you back a construction contract for approval at some point in the fiscal year when we're further along into the discussion. And is a chance that we don't come to an agreement with the developer. We walk away.
Okay.
Basically budgeting that item just in case.
It is. Other questions? Okay. Next slide, please. So the last portion of presentation tonight, it does deal with the funding that we've received, and we just did an announcement a few meetings back with Senator Thayer and the state legislature, and included $7 million of funding for water and wastewater projects for Georgetown Municipal in the state's biennial budget. And this funding was awarded based on a request for 12 unfunded projects, 6 in water, 6 in wastewater. Going back to your question about the PFAS treatment, upcoming deadlines for that out through 2029 for compliance. If you look at items 3 and 4, you've got $75,000 allocated for an assessment there at our water plant, and then a $2 million allocation for any capital project that may or may not be needed. So, but that is 12 different projects that we are currently not funded within our rate structure, some of which will have to be done and we'll have to find the funding. That's why we pursued this, and thankfully the state legislature found this allocation for us. So these have all been integrated into our budget. None of these are based on rate revenue. These are all based on the funding allocation. So these are all included in the FY25 budget. Questions?
Just a comment, I'm gonna go back to the growth analysis impact. I'd like to see that in that timeline. Because, here's why, because wastewater treatment plant 1 comes online next year, around March timing. I just wanna make sure that's in there. I know it's in there, I just wanna see it on the timeline.
I think that we can commit to doing that at whatever month in the year. If you want it done next month, we'll start on it.
Whatever makes sense for the upcoming budget.
Okay.
So as long as it's on the timeline, and everybody can see that.
We can do it.
Thank you.
That's the last slide. Other questions on budget? Anything that we've been through?
Do I hear a motion? Motion made by Ms. Taggett.
Second.
Seconded by Mr. Hampton. Any further discussion?
Oh.
Sorry.
No, it's fine. I'm not gonna argue with you. You good.
My mistake. I'm sorry. Yeah. All those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
All opposed? Motion passes.
Thank you.
Wastewater treatment plant upgrade and expansion project video.
Almost done. Thank you all for your time tonight. So we paid the bills, we've talked budget, but I'm actually, this is the thing I'm very excited about. No approvals required. No effort. So last year, Mayor Jenkins, Councilmember Allen both came out and they walked the entire, different days, walked the entire wastewater treatment plant 1 site with me, and also the construction site. I said, people need to know about what we're doing here. We had a really difficult discussion on what went sideways with our structural design and how we've gotten that back on track and what we're doing to get ready for March of next year. And I said, you know, this is incredible. If you see it, we've got to get more people out there. Problem is, there's liability associated. This is a busy construction site. We can't have just tour after tour. So what we said we would do is a video update, and I'm very excited to show you that tonight with thanks to the Georgetown Police Department, as they have helped us immensely with this. This is brought to you and produced by our own in-house staff, and we're excited. So we'll cue this up, and I'll leave the podium and your viewing pleasure. Thank you.
Thank you, Chase.
Have you ever wondered where your water goes when it drains from your sink, shower, toilet, dishwasher, or washing machine? Over the next few minutes, we will provide you with information regarding essential infrastructure that we rely on every day.
Hello, my name is Chase Azevedo. I serve as the General Manager of Georgetown Municipal Water and Sewer Service. As you know, Georgetown Municipal began work on upgrading expansion for our wastewater treatment plant number 1 in 2019. Today, we're pleased to give you an update on our progress, provide some details of how this facility will be an asset to our community. Currently, this facility serves a primary treatment plant with a capacity to receive and treat 4.5 million gallons of wastewater every day. This expansion will double our treatment capacity to 9 million gallons per day, while also increasing our ability to treat peak day of high flow events. In addition to adding capacity to facilitate planned sustainable growth, we're also upgrading facilities that have been in use as early as the 1970s that reached the end of their useful service life. This project benefits both our existing customers and future customers. This project is a $62 million investment in the future of our community, the largest project in the history of Georgetown Municipal. This facility will allow Georgetown Municipal to serve our customers and protect the environmental health of Elkhorn Creek years to come. While we face significant challenges in this project, we've made a great deal of progress. We're excited to share that the end is now in sight, and that Georgetown and Scott County will soon benefit from this immense undertaking. Wastewater treatment plant number 1 upgrade and expansion project is on schedule to reach important milestone beneficial occupancy in March 2025. On beneficial occupancy, we will be able to receive new flow of this facility and have the wastewater capacity to support planned growth in the community. Before I go any further, I'd like to give a special thanks to the Georgetown Police Department for helping us make this important informational update possible. Lastly, thank you. It continues to be an honor to serve you and our community. We look forward to seeing the positive impact this project will have on Georgetown and Scott County for years to come. Please enjoy the video of.
Hi, I'm Steve Chigger, and I manage wastewater treatment plant number 1, and I'm excited to give you an update on our project. Before we delve into the exciting advancements taking place, let's take a moment to understand how our current infrastructure operates. The current wastewater treatment process starts with the collection and conveyance of wastewater to our pre-treatment facility for debris and treatment. The wastewater then moves through the oxidation ditch for a breakdown of organics through extended aeration, followed by settling in the clarifiers and UV disinfection. The final stage of the treatment process involves reintroducing oxygen to the treated water before it enters Elkhorn Creek. Now let's take a look at the progress and key components of our new water reclamation facility. After the wastewater exceeds the plant, it will first enter our pre-treatment facility. Here, several crucial processes take place to begin the treatment process. Wastewater passes through water streams which capture large debris and solid waste. sludge is then transferred from the bottom of the SPR chamber to the sludge holding tanks for further processing. In the sludge holding tanks, the sludge undergoes additional settling, allowing more water to separate from the solids. The concentrated sludge is then pumped into a spiral screw press. The spiral screw press efficiently removes water from the sludge, reducing the volume and making it easier to transport for disposal. The solids separated from the sludge are then transferred to the landfill for final disposal. Meanwhile, the liquid remaining after the pressing is pumped back into the SPR tank to complete the cycle of treatment. After undergoing biological treatment in the SPR, the clarified water is then pumped into the existing clarifiers, which have been repurposed for our updated system. Here, the water enters a holding cell where an equalization pump regulates the flow before it passes through tertiary filters. These filters remove any remaining particles from the water. Next, the water undergoes UV disinfection treatment, which disrupts the DNA and microorganisms, rendering them harmless. After UV treatment, the water is aerated by large blowers to reintroduce oxygen required by the ecosystem of the Elkhorn. Finally, the water travels down aeration steps, similar to our current process, before it gently cascades into Elkhorn Creek, our final effort to ensure the water's quality before it rejoins the natural environment. To minimize cost, many existing facilities on the property have been repurposed. Our existing ditch will serve as wet weather storage during peak periods. The clarifiers will be used for flow equalization. The UV disinfection building will be converted to a workshop, and the administration building is being expanded to better meet our needs. Upon completion, this plant will significantly expand our capacity, increasing from 4.5 MGD to 9 MGD in regular conditions, and from 13.5 MGD to 36 MGD in high flow conditions. This expanded capacity is vital for supporting the planned growth of Georgetown and Scott County, ensuring that our community can continue to grow and thrive while maintaining the highest standard of environmental stewardship. The plant on the south side of Elkhorn is being demolished and restored to a rolling green space, creating a versatile area for city use, such as a park, trailhead, amphitheater, and more. We're excited to announce that we will begin processing wastewater at Water Reclamation Plant 1 in 2025, marking a significant milestone in our efforts to enhance water resource management in Georgetown. The GMWSS team, as well as our outstanding partners at Judy Construction, remain committed to completing the upgrade and expansion of Water Reclamation Facility Plant 1. This water reclamation facility will clean water in a manner that will meet and exceed regulatory requirements. This process is essential to the health and sustainability of our community and environment. Our team is proud to be a part of this project, knowing that we'll have a lasting positive impact on the residents and future generations of Georgetown, Kentucky. Stay tuned for more updates as we work towards completion of this vital project.
All right. Thank you, Chase. And Chief Allgood, thank you all as well. So, up next, Office of Affordable Housing and Homelessness Prevention, resolution for an application for emergency solutions grant.
So Candace is in Owensboro for a conference tonight, and told her, based on the time sensitivity of the application, that we would cover it, but she will be prepared to provide this as an update as part of her quarterly update, just to outline this program a little bit more, in a little bit more detail. But if you'll recall, we applied for a rapid rehousing grant many months ago. She explained that grant to the council and to the fiscal court, I believe. It's really competitive, and essentially you have to apply continually to kind of break into that. HUD funds Continuum of Care partners, ours being Kentucky Housing Corporation. There's another program that has a similar component to that, rapid rehousing, but it's not as competitive, so hopefully we'd have a better chance on this one, but it's called Emergency Solutions Grant Funding. There are multiple components of the program: street outreach, emergency shelter, homelessness prevention, rapid rehousing, and homeless management information systems. So those 5 programs, you only submit 1 application, so you'll see in your resolution that we're looking at 2 of those components, the rapid rehousing component and the emergency shelter component. You have to partner with a nonprofit on these applications, so Gathering Place Mission is serving as our partner because they do on their campus house the White Flag Shelter, and we already partner in that way. So the first project, the rapid rehousing, is an application for $100,000. And then the second component is the emergency shelter at a cost of $50,000. The max that we were told we can apply for in federal funding is $150,000. That exhibit on your second page kind of breaks down the matching components because it is a little confusing and it is a high match grant. The scoring matrix essentially tells you how many points you're going to get based on how much match you're willing to provide. So if you provide X amount, you'll get 1 point on that part of the matrix, up to 4 points. So the application numbers that we've provided would give maximum points on that component. And so that $50,000 would go towards continued funding of the White Flag Shelter. And then the rapid rehousing would go towards the Housing First model, that it's a tenant-based assistance program where essentially you're taking folks without housing, getting them in housing as quickly as possible, getting their wraparound services to get them into sustainable housing as quickly as possible. So I'm glad to try to answer any questions. Like I said, Candace apologizes that she is at a conference, but the application deadline is the 21st on this, so obviously we would need the council's approval before then.
I have a question. How many citizens do we think the $100,000 on the rapid rehousing will serve?
I do not know that answer, but I could ask her to be prepared to answer that at her quarterly report.
Do I hear a motion? Motion made by Mr. Showalter. Second by Ms. Hambrick. Any further discussion? All those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
All opposed? Motion passes. Up next, City Attorney, first reading of a street name change ordinance, Belvoir Park to Old Wolf Way.
An ordinance changing the street name of Belvoir Park to Old Wolf Way in the official city street map. Summary, renames Belvoir Park to Old Wolf Way. 2, provides for repeal of inconsistent ordinances, severability of provisions, and an effective date upon passage and publication. The full text of this ordinance is available for examination in the City Clerk's Office, 629 North Broadway, Georgetown, Kentucky 40324, or at www.georgetownky.gov. Introduced and publicly read the first time, June 10th, 2024.
Okay. Up next, Eddie, City Engineer, resolution for the municipal aid program funds and local government economic assistance.
Thank you, everybody. This is an agreement between the Transportation Cabinet and the city outlining our fair share of road funds for resurfacing streets and roads in the amount of $809,695.52. So I ask for approval of this agreement.
Do I hear a motion?
Motion.
Motion by Mr. Allen, second by Ms. Tackett. Any further discussion? All those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
All opposed? Motion passes. Finance Department, Ms. Stacy. First reading of an ordinance amending FY 2023-2024 budget.
Yes, just to go over, this is a fairly small item as far as this goes, as far as not a lot of new things, but just wanted to go over the new items so you have an update on those. Again, I always break this down into previously approved transactions, anything you've previously approved by municipal order, resolution, or ordinance. The new items, I just wanted to look at some of our line items and make sure if we had any that were at risk of exceeding the budget for the year, that we tidied this up in our last budget amendment. So the first one is just our utilities for the Kentucky American water hydrants. I think we had budgeted $90,000. That's about a little over $14,000 a month now. So those are up to about $50,000 more that we need there. So we do receive revenue from Kentucky American Water. So we have an expense line item and a revenue line item. The second one, police and fire vehicle maintenance. We talked about those a lot, talked about them mid-year. We continue to have some maintenance expenses. So this is really just to bring both of those accounts up to even. However, in looking back, when I was doing my final analysis, our workers' comp insurance in all departments was less than budgeted. So I was able to just reduce that line item since we had some unused dollars there. So the net effect on both the police and fire budget for that increase in vehicle maintenance will be a net zero, just moving it from one line item to another. The revenue commission fees, due to the timing of when they adopt their budget versus when I've typically already brought a budget to you for first reading, we had put, I think, about $400,000 in the budget, and then they also did some mid-year amendments that the commission approved. So we needed to add $57,000 to their budget just to get to what the commission approved for our portion. The last one, we've talked about this at a couple of our last meetings and during the budget presentation on May 13th. We initially hadn't included a transfer to the capital projects fund for City Hall, and we will be coming back in August after talking with our fiscal agent about whether there's the desire to bond a portion of that. But in the meantime, since the project was approved last June, I think the timing of when it was approved didn't line up. We'd already had first reading of our budget at that point. So I wanted to go ahead and get the money for the project transferred to the capital projects fund. If this fall council makes the decision to finance all or part of that project, we will transfer the money back to the general fund reserve. But since it was approved last June and we haven't made a final decision on that financing yet, I did go ahead and put that in since that project.
And this is just a column move. The money is still invested
Yeah,
where it's
it's
invested.
the same. Yes, right now our money's invested up until we need to draw down. So for now, yep, the cash is all in one bank account.
Yeah.
So it's moving it on the ledger from
Okay.
the general fund to the capital projects fund. We will continue to invest that money and earn interest on it until it's needed to make payments on the project. So those were the only new items in the budget amendment. The rest was previously approved by action by council.
An ordinance amending the annual budget ordinance for fiscal year July 1, 2023 through June 30, 2024. Summary, general fund. Prior year revenues are increased by $11,229,477.91. Intergovernmental revenues are increased by $34,995.83. Other income is increased by $39,810.54. General government expenses are increased by $49,525. Utility expenses are increased by $50,000. Police expenses are increased by $12,818.07. Fire expenses are increased by $6,057. City engineer expenses are increased by $121,975. Interlocal expenses are increased by $80,370.21. Transfer to other funds are increased by $10,983. $10,983,539. Grant fund. Local grant revenue is increased by $13,047. Fire department expenses are increased by $13,047. Capital projects fund. Transfers from other funds are increased by $10,983,539. All ordinances or parts of ordinances in conflict with this ordinance are hereby repealed. This ordinance shall take effect after its passage and publication according to law. The full text of this ordinance is available for examination in the city clerk's office, 629 North Broadway, Georgetown, Kentucky, 40324, or at www.georgetownky.gov. Publicly introduced and read for the first time June 10th, 2024.
All right. Thank you, ma'am. Up next, first reading of the fiscal year 2024-2025 budget ordinance.
Just a quick recap on how we've gotten to today. On May 13th, that was the original presentation of the budget to council. On May 20th, we did have a first reading with a couple of changes. One of the changes we brought you then was the addition of $15,700 to the city clerk budget to have the professional services to have our code of ordinances codified in one of the online searchable databases, and a minor increase of $250 to code enforcement uniforms. Between that first reading and this meeting, as we know, a couple of other things came up. So on May 29th, I came before you and noted that the mayor, after discussion with council members and department directors, had recommended adding back the $149,432 for the fire inspector position. And then, as mentioned by Councilwoman Hambrook when discussing the police committee, we are equalizing the pay between lieutenants and battalion chiefs and captains and sergeants in fire and police. Those positions are graded the same, therefore, we're making sure people with equal years of service are paid the same across those departments. So with that, just to update, our original budget presentation had about 4.3 million of a budget deficit, including all the one-time capital expenses, and the current number is 4.6. So about a 300,000 to add all those changes for police and fire and put the fire inspector position back in. So no additional changes have been made to the budget between our last meeting on May 29th and tonight.
Can I add
But
one
we do
thing
have
to
to have
that?
a new first reading.
Sorry, before you read, I do want to mention, Mayor Jenkins asked if any council members had additional items to reach out. Councilman Allen did reach out with 2 items. One of those being whether we can pursue shelters over some of our bus stops. Obviously, if folks are using Bluegrass Ride in inclement weather, that's something to consider. We are pursuing grant funding and opportunities, so if those grant funding opportunities don't come to fruition, it's something that we would come back with a budget amendment for. He also asked that we look into an employee benefit that would provide reimbursement opportunity for financial wellness.
Yes. it's
Financial freedom.
Peace University.
So we probably wouldn't be able to confine it to that one program, but if you enroll in programs that, city employees want reimbursement for essentially being intentional about their financial health. So we're going to look into that and come back to you with that when we have more information about exactly what that could look like, but wanted to note that those were 2 items that Councilman Allen brought as well.
An ordinance of the City of Georgetown, Kentucky adopting the annual budget for the fiscal year period July 1, 2024 through June 30, 2025 by estimating revenues and resources and appropriating funds for the operation of city government. Summary, Section 1. Adopts by incorporated exhibit the fiscal year 2024-2025 budget of the City of Georgetown, Kentucky as follows. Governmental funds original budget. Prior year revenues, $16,540,609. Revenues. Municipal taxation, $3,430,000. Licenses and permits, $31,252,622. Franchise fees, $2,213,100. Fines and forfeitures, $180,000. Intergovernmental revenues, $13,509,371. Charges for services, $1,810,381. Other revenues, $761,000. Other financing sources, transfers, $5,831,192. Total city revenues, $58,987,666. Expenditures, general government, $2,631,110. City council, $162,010. City clerk, $359,340. Police, $13,489,003. Public Works, $4,821,642. Fire, $10,713,899. Code Enforcement, $431,288. Building Inspection, $779,575. Dispatch, Telecommunications, $3,969,213. Utilities, $906,000. Community Services, $959,594. Interlocal, $9,460,690. Self-insured medical plan expenses, $4,210,466. Capital outlay, $17,651,661. Debt service, $1,136,743. Transfers to other funds, $3,846,041. Total city expenditures, $75,528,275. Proprietary funds, original budget, revenues, sanitation, $2,719,200. Cemetery, $246,000. Intergovernmental revenue, $256,287. Other revenue, $5,000. Other financing sources, transfers, $1,729,348. Total proprietary revenues, $4,955,835. Expenditures, sanitation, $2,719,200. Stormwater, $1,479,062. Cemetery, $757,573. Total proprietary expenditures, $4,955,835. Section 2, authorizes the mayor, except as provided in the Georgetown Purchasing Policy adopted in Municipal Order 11028 and amended in Municipal Order 2022-17, to enter into any contracts or agreements necessary to fulfill the operation of city government within the allocations listed in this ordinance. Section 3 provides that if any section, subsection, sentence, clause, or phrase of this ordinance is for any reason held unconstitutional or otherwise invalid, such infirmity shall not affect the validity of the remaining portions of this ordinance. Section 4 provides that all ordinances or parts of ordinances in conflict with this ordinance are hereby repealed. The full text of this ordinance is available for examination in the City Clerk's Office, 629 North Broadway, Georgetown, Kentucky, 40324, or at www.georgetownky.gov. Publicly introduced and read the first time, June 10th, 2024.
Thank you, ma'am.
Appreciate it.
Up next, Human Resources, the first reading of amendment to the Personnel Ordinance.
The ordinance that you have before you is just a culmination of what's been worked on for the past several months. This ordinance adds positions that have been referenced during budget conversations. It upgrades the grade for all positions to match what was recommended in the compensation study. And then it removes several positions that we had not funded or filled in the past several years. So the net effect is 13 fewer positions for a total of 234 employee positions.
An ordinance amending Section 2-60 of the Code of Ordinances regarding the personnel and pay classification plan. Summary. 1. Amend Section 2-60, subsection A of the Code of Ordinances to correct a statutory reference. 2. Repeals and replaces the list of authorized positions of employment set forth in Exhibit B of Section 2-60, subsection C of the Code of Ordinances to implement portions of a recent compensation study conducted by Management Advisory Group Incorporated on behalf of the city. 3. Provides for repeal of inconsistent ordinances, severability of provisions, and an effective date upon passage and publication. The full text of this ordinance is available for examination in the City Clerk's Office, 629 North Broadway, Georgetown, Kentucky, 40324, or at www.georgetownky.gov. Introduced and publicly read for the first time, June 10th, 2024.
All right, thank you. Up next is the Police Municipal Order for On Patrol Live. Do I hear a motion to discuss this matter? Got a motion from Ms. Hambrick, got a second from Mr. Allen. Do we need a vote on this before we discuss it, or are we good to go at this part? Okay. Questions, comments, concerns? Ms. Hambrick?
I think that the police department had all good intentions in investigating the possibility of doing this, trying to give the public a good idea of the complexity of their job and the professionalism that it requires to serve the citizens in the capacity and sometimes the danger that they are involved in. They also thought that it might help with recruiting. Despite those concepts, I really think that doing a live broadcast nationwide of people when they are at their most vulnerable is not a good thing. And therefore, despite benefits that might be proffered in that direction, I think that the negatives far outweigh in my mind of doing that. I don't see that it helps either the welfare or the safety of our citizens, and I'm not in favor of doing that.
Anyone else?
Yeah, just
Mr. Allen?
Thank you. I think there were two things, right? It was let people see the job that they're doing on a daily basis, and that would help with recruiting. And the other item was it would humanize the badge. so that we would get to see that law enforcement is involved in a lot of other things other than chasing bad people. So I had not seen the show. I spent some time watching it and contacted Berkeley County, South Carolina to talk with them. They were one of the law enforcement agencies that were featured. And I spent some time talk with their community director down there. And she said that there were inquiries to the law enforcement agency, but couldn't go into what kind of recruiting they had seen from it, and that their Facebook page had a lot of positive comments on it. In watching the show, I did notice that there were just some situations that I don't think I would want to put our citizens in. It was just situations that I think would not be good for our citizens. So I talked with Chief Allgood about what's the possibility of taking the Citizens Police Academy, which I've participated in. I know several of us on the panel have participated in that program, which is a phenomenal program, and it really does humanize the badge because you get a chance to talk to the officers face to face. And you get to hear their stories, and you get to engage with them. Also, I asked him about taking the police academy on the road and taking it into communities. Some people aren't comfortable with going to the police department. So to kind of combat that, let's take it on the road. And I told him I would support any way I could and take it into the community and just run that academy in the community in different locations. It does help to humanize the badge, and we may be able to do some recruiting internally. So that's my comments right now. If we have to vote, I just wait to vote.
Anyone else?
Are we voting on this one? Yes.
Well, right now, we're just discussing it. We're just discussing it, so we'll move forward with that.
I know it was a great honor for the police department to be picked because I know there's not a lot. But myself personally, I don't feel that it's good for our community right now. I'm looking at it from my standpoint. I wouldn't want to see my family member up on the news. I mean, I know they're blocked out or whatever like that, but still, the citizens, we know who that would be. I just don't feel like that. I know you said recruitment, it might be a good recruitment benefit. I just don't see that. I was trying to understand it, but I'm definitely a no for this right now. But I know it's an honor to be picked, and I appreciate that.
Anyone else?
I just want to say that I appreciate our Georgetown Police Department, that you all you do a very good job. I'm very proud of you guys, and it is an honor to be picked. But there's controversy in all of it, and I'm not comfortable with doing it. So make sure to go on the record with that.
Just to add to their comments, I just, I've watched the show before myself, and, I think we need to highlight the positives of Georgetown, and I think shows like this tend to dwell on the negatives. And, people's, when they have bad times, bad situations, and we don't need to focus on that. We need to focus on what positive comes out of this community. So.
Mr. Showalter.
Chief, I know you and I had a talk. We had a conversation or communication a couple of days after a post was put out on social media. And I know that, Connie, you and I, over the past 14 years on council, and Todd, you were part of city police department. I said this in January of 2023 in a council meeting after a change had been made at the top of the department, and I stand by that today. We've seen a police department that has transformed in all the right ways, positive ways. I know some people might have negative interactions with law enforcement, but the majority of people have positive interactions. I'm convinced of that. And I don't want to do anything at all in my remaining time on the city council that are going to put the citizens of Georgetown at risk, members of the police department at risk, and then potential liability to the city of Georgetown. So I respect your leadership. I've told you that before. I have the utmost confidence in you, your command staff, and the men and women that wear the uniform. But I'm sorry, I think it's a horrible idea. I stand by that. I'll take the criticism that comes my way. It is what it is. But again, I respect what we're trying to accomplish, but I think it's a horrible idea. So that's all I have to say.
Can I just say one more thing to piggyback on what Councilman Allen said, is that the Citizens Police Academy is something that is very good. I've done it twice. And from the first one to the second one, it was totally different, but I wouldn't mind talking to you further about that, because it does very much make it real. You get it. And I'm glad that you all do that. You do a great job.
I respect the police chief and the department, and I think Georgetown is blessed to have, excuse me, to have as good a police force as we have, and I'm also not in favor of it. So, but thank you, sir.
Okay. Do I hear a motion to accept, a motion for this municipal order? Okay, it dies for lack of motion. Up next, council comments. Who wants to go first? Mr. Allen.
No, I was pointing down there.
Okay, Mr. Showalter, we'll start down here.
Several items. Are there any updates on, I keep forgetting to turn that on. Are there any new updates on the real estate appraisal for the pieces of property on
Lexus,
the Lexus, regarding the Lexus Way extension? If
One of the requested appraisals has come in since Friday, and the other one we're still waiting on. So that will come hopefully to the council for discussion soon.
Okay. And then second question, I know that I have brought it up, I know Mr. Stone has brought it up, and I think there's others that have brought it up on the developer impact fees. Is there any new developments on the time frame? I think that was brought up at our last council meeting, but just trying to see if there's any new updates on.
Yeah, that was, since we didn't have mayor's comments tonight, that was one, just didn't know where to put it. We have been able, Chase's team has been able to review the draft water wastewater portion, which is honestly the most complicated portion of it. We have a call set for Friday to review that, and in the scope of that meeting, we're gonna ask for an estimated timeframe on a presentation to the council.
Okay. And then the last question, I know Stacy mentioned the Revenue Commission tonight, and I know we made some changes as a council.
Mm-hmm.
I can't remember exactly when that was last year. I think it was in the fall of last year, when we kind of strengthened.
Enforcement. Put some teeth.
Is there any chance, maybe in 2 weeks, it might not be enough time, but maybe within the next 30 days, that we can get, possibly get the Revenue Commission here when it works with their schedule, to give us an update on the changes that we did make, or what are we seeing at this point in time as far as numbers? It might be too early, I don't know, but just trying to get just an update.
We'll touch base with them and let you know when, I'll ask when they think, in terms of collections, it would make sense to give that report.
That's all I've got.
Mr. Hampton.
Just a couple of things. First, I guess it's been maybe a couple of months ago, I asked the mayor for an update on City Hall. I was just wondering if we can get something like that coming up.
Yes, so the second half of that change order, you all approved that change order, the time-sensitive portions of it to avoid those cost increases, and the second half of that is going to come to the next meeting at council. So there will be a full project update with that, but they are at a point where they've pulled all the numbers, and that second part will come to council at the next meeting.
Okay. And lastly, the 2024 Comprehensive Plan Presentation and Forum is coming up Thursday, the 12th at 6 p.m. This is the time to give your, ask questions, give your feedback. A lot of work's gone into it, a lot of hard work by the planning staff and then the committee members on that and the public. So, I encourage everyone to attend, but unfortunately, I say that, but I'm going to be out of town, so I won't be able to be there. But I'm eagerly awaiting the comments that we get out of that. So
That'll be Wednesday,
It's
not
Wednesday.
Thursday.
Wednesday, I'm sorry.
Yeah,
Sorry.
Wednesday.
Yeah, the 12th. So, thank you.
To piggyback on the comprehensive plan, I too want to attend the meeting on Wednesday. Is it true that when looking at the comprehensive plan that the regional site that is being bandied about has been updated from industrial to commerce, BIT? What 1T, or has it been changed from industrial?
No, I think the
in comprehensive
conversation
plan?
is whether it's in the urban service boundary. So the decision of zoning versus urban service boundary, they are two different things. And I know there were a couple members of the Planning Commission staff here tonight, so I know that they'll be prepared to address that conversation at the public hearing, because they were here for the comments from the public, and we'll certainly make sure that they have answers to anything.
And so
in
it's
that
still zoned?
The zoning wouldn't have changed unless there was a zoning map amendment that was consistent with the comprehensive plan, but the question of whether it's in the urban service boundary is a different
question.
different
Okay.
question. So
Okay.
I hope that kind of clears it up, but also, like I said, anybody who attends the public hearing, or not the public hearing, the public meeting on Wednesday, please plan to engage with the planning and zoning staff. They're really on top of it, and they're very responsive. And like I said, they were here tonight to hear some of those questions, and hopefully we'll be able to more comprehensively address that, pun
Okay.
intended.
Yeah, it's a very important topic, and I think every citizen should go and listen to the discussion and make decisions about it going forward. Thank you to Megan and Stacy and Chase. We had a lot of really informative number crunching, and a lot of really hard work goes into that behind the scenes, and appreciate that. I do want to just kind of telegraph that possibly at the next meeting, Millie and I have agreed to co-sponsor a fireworks amendment to our fireworks ordinance to try to cut down on the length of time that people are shooting those things up in the air and bothering people who work second shift and their pets. And so Emily has worked hard on coming up with something. It's small changes, but I think it'll make a difference. So you can anticipate that. And a question that you can take to the mayor or whomever, remind me if, when Mayor Prather was still here, didn't he say that the West Main Street project would include more smooth paving over the bridge? Because it's still,
That's exactly what I was.
it's still kind of a bumpy mess.
It is.
Eddie?
Eddie?
The state is probably. Thank you. That's a state highway.
Okay.
Eddie, come to the microphone. so
Hold
we can hear
on,
you.
hold on,
Yeah.
wait a minute,
Sorry,
because I couldn't do it.
it's council comment.
That's it.
So
Yeah.
We'll get
We
this
can't ask
addressed.
questions.
I couldn't ask questions last time in council comments, so, sorry.
Well, I was
Fair-
going to ask you to
fair
come to the.
Never mind then.
No,
See you, Eddie. Thank
You
you.
need to rephrase your question, and then we can have a
I
follow-up
said
on it.
if the mayor could get back with
That's
us
fine.
and speak with Eddie and whomever about an update, because I have a memory that of a resurfacing was going to be one of the last things that was going to take place, and hopefully that's still going to take place. And I do want you to know, and the mayor to know, that I've gotten a lot of positive comments about the shaving and the sidewalks that have been repaired, and it's very appreciated, so thank you.
So we'll direct that to Mayor Jenkins and request an update at the next meeting on that topic.
Okay,
Yep.
thanks.
I don't have much. I just want to tell the chief, I'm so excited about the traffic unit because I've seen them out all weekend catching those speeders. And tell them to stay on Highland Court or Highland Avenue. I don't know which one, but I was glad to see the lights because there's so many children and walkers and everything down there, and that's where they really need to focus on too. And I appreciate that. Let them know that. That's all I have.
All right.
Keeping with that, somebody behind me driving called the police and had me pulled over for going too slow. And I was stopping a little bit too far back from the light. And the backstory on that was I was just about decapitated when a car was going 40 miles an hour, hit me in the rear end and pushed me toward a flatbed one-ton truck. And I had no place to go but in the other lane to get out of its way, so I am here today. So I will always continue, you might want to tell your traffic committee people, or traffic officers, that I will continue to drive slower. I don't drink. That's probably why they thought maybe I was driving slow and slowing down a little bit too soon to the light. But I thought, oh, come on, you know. But anyway, the other thing is, I had a comment that I can't say is too Eddie for an answer, but my comment also was, I live on West Main Street, and that road is, and I shop at Save-A-Lot, and that section of the road is awful. You know, I mean, good old slow Millie, she's not speeding, she's not yee-hawing like the Dukes of Hazzard over the bridge, but it is so rough, and I was hoping that there might be some kind of timeline. Eddie, you want to laugh out loud so bad right now. There'd be some timeline on when that road would get resurfaced. And with that, I also want to know if it's still on track, whoever, I can't ask Eddie, the crosswalk that's supposed to go near Galvin's to slow the traffic down between Galvin's and that bridge, because they do speed big time coming from Frankfurt Pike, you know, into Georgetown, like 60 miles an hour, you know, and that's going to be bad.
I'll brief the mayor and he can.
That's going to be bad when people are coming out of Galvin's after they've had that drink that I don't have, going across the street. So, safety issue, that's all. So.
Ms. Tackett.
I want to piggyback on, say thank you to Megan and Stacy and Chase and all your all's hard work, Tracy's, Emily's, and Devin's. Thank you very much for all you all do. It's a lot to put all of this together. And I appreciate all of our directors and police and fire and public works and Eddie. So thank you all very much for what you do. And I don't have anything negative to say tonight. Hold on.
Mr. Allen.
Oh, here we go.
No, I'm not going to talk about you, Millie. I'm just trying to get that visual out of my head.
Please.
So.
I didn't get the blue light, you see.
No, it's the Dukes of Hazzard thing.
Oh, I
I'm trying to
know.
get out.
Right
Okay, so I had asked Devin about Net Device, and can you talk just briefly about that, Devin, about the Net Device presentation in August, please?
Just that they're scheduled?
Yes.
Yeah, August 26th, they will come do a presentation to the council, and that's a follow-up to that question quite a while ago. It took me a while to get the contact, so I apologize.
And it is the budget planning cycle time, so just to reiterate a couple of acknowledgments for Stacy, Megan, Chase, Jeff. Appreciate the effort that you guys put into the budget. So just thank you again for that. The comp plan, we've talked about that. It will be interactive. It's set up to collect feedback from the community, so please show up, provide your feedback. Chief Allgood, just want you to know we do support you. We just need to continue to work together to find ways to engage the community with law enforcement. So you've got my support on that. And I will say special prayer for Mayor and his family.
Absolutely.
That's all I have.
All right. If nobody else has anything else to come before the council, we stand adjourned.
Millie.